What if the fate of a nation was decided inside a single room on a hot summer day by men who knew they could be executed for treason? In the heart of Philadelphia, during the sweltering summer of 1776, a group of men gathered inside a modest yet dignified building known as Independence Hall. The windows were shut tight despite the oppressive heat, not for comfort, but for secrecy. Outside, the city buzzed with uncertainty. Inside, history was being written, quietly, cautiously, and with immense courage. At that time, the American colonies were still under the rule of the British Crown. Tensions had been rising for years, taxes imposed without representation, harsh laws, and the presence of British troops had angered colonists. Yet declaring independence was not a simple or unanimous decision. It was dangerous, it was bold, and it was irreversible. Among the delegates was a tall, soft-spoken man from Virginia, Thomas Jefferson. Though relatively young, he possessed a remarkable ability with words. Alongside him were influential figures like John Adams and Benjamin Franklin, men who understood both the risks and the necessity of independence. The responsibility fell on Jefferson to draft what would become one of the most powerful documents in human history, the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson worked tirelessly in his rented room nearby. Candlelight flickered late into the night as he carefully crafted each sentence. He wasn't just writing a document, he was shaping the identity of a future nation. His words needed to inspire, justify rebellion, and unite 13 diverse colonies under a single purpose. When the draft was finally presented inside Independence Hall, the atmosphere was tense. The men debated fiercely. Every word was scrutinized. Some feared the consequences. If they failed, they would be labeled traitors, punishable by death under British law. Yet others argued that freedom was worth the risk. Days passed as edits were made, lines were removed, phrases were refined, and ideas were sharpened. One controversial section condemning slavery was ultimately taken out, revealing the deep divisions that already existed among the colonies. Finally, on July 2, 1776, the Continental Congress voted in favor of independence. 2 days later, on July 4th, the final document was adopted. That moment inside Independence Hall was quiet. No grand celebration, no fireworks, no immediate cheers echoing through the streets. But what happened there would echo across centuries. The Declaration began with words that would become immortal. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. These words were revolutionary. They challenged monarchy, questioned authority, and placed power in the hands of the people. One by one, the delegates stepped forward to sign the document. Some hesitated, some signed boldly. Each signature was an act of defiance against one of the most powerful empires in the world. John Hancock famously signed his name large and clear, reportedly saying that King George III would be able to read it with his spectacles. But behind the bravery was fear. These men knew the stakes. British forces were already engaged in conflict with colonial militias. War had begun. Signing the Declaration meant committing fully to that war, with no turning back. Outside the hall, life continued with uncertainty. Soldiers prepared for battle. Families worried about their future. Merchants feared economic collapse. No one knew whether this bold declaration would lead to freedom or destruction. News of independence spread slowly. When it reached different towns and colonies, reactions were mixed. Some celebrated with enthusiasm, others were cautious, unsure of what lay ahead. The war that followed, the American Revolutionary War, would last for years. It would test the resilience, unity, and determination of the new nation. Victory was far from guaranteed. Yet the ideas born inside Independence Hall became a powerful force. They inspired not only Americans, but people around the world. The concept of liberty, equality, and self-governance began to spread beyond borders. Independence Hall itself became more than just a building. It became a symbol, a place where courage overcame fear, where vision defeated doubt. Years later, as the United States grew and evolved, that same hall would host another historic event, the drafting of the U.S. Constitution in 1787. Once again, leaders gathered within its walls to shape the future of the nation. Today, visitors from across the world walk through Independence Hall. They stand in the same room where those brave men once debated, argued, and ultimately chose freedom. The wooden chairs, the green-covered tables, the quiet atmosphere, it all tells a story. A story of risk, a story of unity, a story of a nation being born. But perhaps the most powerful part of this story is not just what happened, but what could have happened. If those men had chosen safety over courage, compromise over conviction, history might have taken a very different path. The United States might never have existed as we know it. And all of it, the ideas, the debates, the Declaration, began inside one room on one summer day in a building that still stands today. Independence Hall is not just a historical site, it is the birthplace of a dream.